shirt off. Take your shirt off.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shirtless Plantain Show. This week, another week of classic players. We're going to look at some players who are legends, but they often get looked underneath the radar. So, without further ado, let's get straight to the content. So, ladies and gentlemen, this week, as we mentioned, 3 players who are just absolute legends, and we're going to start off with midfielders. So, the first player is Rui Costa. Coach, take it away.
Rui Costa. First of all, technique. That is what I'll describe Rui Costa as. He is the embodiment of technique. Fantastic footballer, pure footballer out and out. But he's one of those rare players that you could see that even though things came so naturally to him, everything was super duper deliberate. He was super cerebral. Everything he done, there was a purpose behind it. There was no sort of wasted movement or a wasted feint. It was all deliberate, and it's very rare that you get that combination of player that is so effortlessly talented, but also so meticulous in what they do. I think there was a quote from Romario the other day where he said, where he compared him, where he said athletes eat right and they go to sleep and whatever, blah blah blah. But he's just a goal scorer. He's a centre forward, and I feel like Rui Costa was the embodiment of both those quotes together. He did all of the right things you should do as a professional footballer, but also had just the natural instinct of being so naturally gifted as well. His Fiorentina days were obviously probably his prime years. He scored his most goals there, and that's where he got his big moves to AC Milan. And obviously the Milan years, he wasn't as productive, but again, he played in the team with the likes of Shevchenko and Seedorf and Maldini and Nesta, and got a Champions League there as well. Internationally, him and Figo, they were the main men for Portugal, and that was Portugal's probably the best Portugal team of my lifetime, of our lifetime should I say. I remember specifically in Euro 2004, I think, he scored. I remember him scoring a really good goal against England, actually. Yeah, I think we can get that up on the screen actually now. Thank you. But I feel like he's one of those players that can absolutely go on under the radar because he wasn't the most prolific scorer or creative force, but he's one of those players that you literally have to watch the game to see how great he was. He was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. What are you?
Yo, coach, let me ask you this about Rui Costa. Remember that when he went to AC Milan and he was in that midfield with Gattuso, Pirlo, Seedorf, and him, and at times Kaká as well. Who was the best midfielder in that bunch?
The best midfielder in that bunch?
If you had to shoot 4 of them and keep the 5th, who was the best midfielder? Not best player, just the best midfielder in the bunch.
Oh God, I really want to say him. Okay, he'd be the second to last bullet. I'd save Seedorf, if that makes you feel better. I'd save Seedorf, but he'd be the second to last bullet. In terms of I think we forget as well, iconicness as well. A lot of people forget that before Alexander Hleb came out with the short socks and the mini shin pads, Rui Costa was the originator of that.
Yeah, he had that iconic playmaker look. He just looked like a playmaker.
Picture of Rui Costa.
Yeah, he was just so cool. His hair flowing in the wind.
There's a picture of him in the Champions League. There's a picture of him in the Champions League where you could see he has the manias and he's just in the middle of the pitch and it's just the coolest thing in the world because it's this is just pure aesthetic. He is one of the coolest looking players on the pitch. It's that's why for me, when I see Iwobi and Jack Grealish wear those socks, I'm just French kiss all the time because just brings me back to seeing him. One of the things I want to ask about Rui Costa, because we spoke about it off camera, I think when I look at him, I look at the player he reminds me a bit of João Felix a bit, but also Martin Odegaard as well. Is there any other player that he reminds you of?
That's it. João Felix, I feel like is probably the closest kind of in style of player that we've got to Rui Costa today. I feel.
I want to say one thing before we move on from Rui Costa. The thing I remember most about him in that era, or just I guess throughout his career, really was how upright he looked when he was playing. Like a lot of players, like their head goes down sometimes. When they run, they may lose their form a little bit, but he was always very upright. He just looked classy all the time, like he was above what was going on around.
It was the vision. He always had a picture of where the ball should go, where he should be. Like, it was just the vision, you know. One more thing though, we're talking about boots as well. Him and Adidas Predators were iconic.
Yeah.
Very iconic. But a lot of people might not remember he was sponsored by Nike originally. And I remember the Nike days, very, very short Nike days. But again, he was sponsored by Nike originally, along with some of the biggest players at the time as well. You're talking about Ronaldo, you know, Maldini, Figo, you know. So, but then he moved on to Adidas, and that's where we all know him as. But again, you know, when you've got it like that, you can have the two biggest boot manufacturers in the world like piling after you.
Yep. Next player that we're going to talk about, he often gets, no one really thinks about him like that, but he's probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest defensive midfielders to ever do it, like literally ever. That's Redondo. One quick thing, apparently, I'm not sure how true this is, but apparently Capello's only cried twice over two players. The one play he cried over was when Van Basten retired. The second play he cried over was Redondo. So if you want to know who Capello is, he's a hard man. Capello doesn't take no shit. So excuse my French. But yeah, Capello crying over those two shows you how great Redondo is. So take it away.
Yeah, so I mean, the period of Redondo's career that we all really care about is when the years he spent at Real Madrid. You know, like while he was there, he won 2 La Ligas and I believe 2 Champions Leagues. And the very unique fact about Redondo that most people forget to just prove how good he was is that in the second Champions League run, he actually won the most valuable player for the entire competition. So the award they give to Messi and Ronaldo every year these days, he won that as a defensive midfielder back in his era. You know, so that just goes to show how good he was. The unfortunate thing about his career is that he spent a lot of it injured. You know, so he could never really just get that stretch of form going for consistent periods, but he was so good that they still kept room for him at Madrid. So whenever he was fit, he just played. Unfortunately, his national team career probably wasn't as good as his club career because he happened to be playing during the time when they had a really weird and controlling coach. And this guy just wasn't taking shit from the coach. Like Daniel Pasarello was really weird. He would not select people he suspected of being homosexuals. And he thought that if you had long hair, you were a homosexual, so you couldn't play for Argentina. And him and Redondo beefed over that because Redondo was like, I don't understand what hair has to do with soccer. If this motherfucker doesn't want to play me because of my hair, I'm not going to play. And the guy was a coach for quite a while, so he only has like 29 caps. But he was easily, you know, like Scam said, one of the best defensive midfielders ever. Like he could do it on both sides of the ball. There was no, you know, a lot of defensive midfielders, typically, maybe outside of Ramos, you kind of think of them as either better defensively or better offensively. He was the first one I remember in my lifetime that I was like, he's equally good going forward or tackling. And probably the most iconic moment of his career happened against Manchester United. And you know where I'm going with this. When he backheeled that ball around Henningberg and gave the assist to Raul, that was sick, man. Like, that's one of the greatest humiliations. And, you know, it's like the equivalent of Harden dropping Wes Johnson and, you know, licking his chops before he hit that 3. Like, it's exactly that. Like, I don't even know is Henningberg still alive, bro?
Probably not. Probably not. You know, so you guys want to know something funny about Redondo? He actually had a really wealthy upbringing. His family actually were like industrialists, and he actually studied law. So, yeah, he's a rich kid who was going around kicking everybody's ass. That's really kind of what Redondo.
So the favela gene wasn't prevalent in him, but he curated it and mastered it. That is pretty scary.
Right. That's. You know what? I was going to make an analogy that referenced our collective painful history as people living in the diaspora, but I think today is a good day. I'm gonna let that go. My bad.
All right. So we're gonna move on to the last midfielder, who is probably our collective favorite midfielder in the show. We mentioned him earlier. We love him. He's literally the definition of black excellence. He is a walking, talking ab. Literally, his abs have abs, and he's 48 years old and he still has abs. It's Clarence Seedorf. You know, when you think of the name Clarence, you laugh because you don't get intimidated by a guy named Clarence. I mean, his name's Clarence. But you see Seedorf and you're just like, I'm kind of scared of Seedorf. So he actually got his debut in 1992 with Ajax, with LVG's Ajax. If you don't know that team, that was probably one of the greatest like teams ever to be assembled. Just full of just young, hungry talent. I mean, Kluivert, Kanu, go on for days about that team. He made it, got his debut there, and then he moved on to Sampdoria. Then he went to Madrid. Then went to Milan. Into Milan, then he went to AC Milan, where everyone kind of knows him with playing with Pirlo and Rui Costa and Shevchenko and everybody. Then he finished off in Brazil with 2 years, and then he went to go manage, Milan. He went to manage in Italy and Spain, and listen, the guy's a legend. He's literally won 4 Champions Leagues with 3 different teams. The only worst part is that he played for the Dutch team, who were incredibly talented, but they all hated each other, who basically decided to go full American 1950s and 60s and segregated themselves. And there's a lot of issues with those guys up there. So, point is, his international career wasn't that.
Why'd you say full America's 1950s and 60s? Like it's not happening today.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, America's still America's very segregated. Yeah. But yeah,
But if I say this to you, Scams, what do you say in response? Clarence Seedorf is the best midfielder ever.
Yeah. What are you gonna say? No? His idol is Frank Rijkaard. Other than Matthias and Rijkaard and I don't know who else he's gonna say. People are gonna tell me, oh no, what this guy like? No, Seedorf literally is I know we like to joke around. He literally was PMP and technique and all of that together.
Honestly, I'm pretty positive. I watched his entire career. I'm pretty positive I saw him play every position in midfield. And sometimes I think I even saw him play on the wing when he was at Ajax. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think I saw that. And he did everything to an elite level. Everything. There's nothing he could not do. Nothing.
And one of the things we could show right here or here, I don't know where we could put it, is his hairstyles. Seedorf literally had every single cool hairstyle back in the day. When you look at it now, it makes sense why he's bald, because that amount of locks and grease and permage is gonna just push your hairline back. So but to his credit, he never did any francophone shit.
I think one of the things we forget about players like Seedorf is the fact that the level of consistency shown. Players don't move around like that anymore across top clubs, and manage to be a fixture for all of those top clubs, and you look at the players that he played with, and he still managed to get himself starting week in, week out for these teams. He's one of those players that no matter what, the manager's looking at thinking, okay, yeah, I've got my 30 goal season striker, I've got my dependable centre back. Seedorf is one of the first team's names on the team sheet every week because of the level of consistency he gives you. He was so good. He was so good at just providing at least a 7 out of 10 performance week in, week out. Now, he wasn't the most extravagant in terms of numbers and in terms of big game-winning moments like the Lampards of the world and whatnot. But every week, Seedorf is not going to let you down. I'm lucky enough to have watched him twice live, and the 2 things I can say that I know that he was probably the best at what he did was. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think I was fortunate enough to have seen him play twice live, and the 2 things I can say that he was absolutely fantastic at is, number 1, being able to slow the game down to the pace whatever the game demanded at the time, and number 2, being able to find the pass out of nothing. He was, with both feet, he was so good at that. He was just the type of player that you want on your team. You just look at him and think, if I've got him on my team today, we are not losing today. He was that good, and I feel like the younger generation need to probably do a bit more research on players like Seedorf, because he's someone that can easily get lost in history. He was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
I've seen stuff where people say Lampard was better and this and that, and I get it. We love stats, we love those eye-popping numbers where oh man, he scored this many goals this season. But you also gotta look at the context and the players that they were playing with. Someone like Seedorf doesn't really need to score that many goals when you have players like Shevchenko and
right.
You have so many different.
Lampard was playing behind that fraud Drogba. Let's talk about that. Drogba is a fraud. I want that episode. Let's talk about that shit. I hate that guy.
Yeah, so the point is a lot of these players didn't have the most eye-popping numbers. What they did is stuff that would just make them consistent, week in and week out, that give you minimum 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, just consistently, just technical, just specimens. So this is why we do this, because we really want to give these players their flowers. They deserve it. Players like Seedorf and Rui Costa and Redondo, they get swept underneath the rug almost. But these guys deserve it. And, from us, we're going to continue to do this because it's fun. It's fun to really just think about how great these guys were and how lucky and blessed we were to see these guys play in their prime. So, yeah, with that said, we're out. We're going to bring you guys more content. Don't forget to check our IG, our Twitter, and our other YouTube episodes. So, yeah, you guys take it easy. Peace.
Take it slow. Take it slow.